Welcome back to another episode of the Canon on the Boomer Bust channel. I'm your host Terry, and today doing a review for The Woman King, starring Viola Davis. I did see this opening weekend. I saw it a little later, and then I wanted to see it again because I really enjoyed it, and I wanted to really solidify my opinion before doing a review. So I saw it yesterday, and yeah, I wanted to talk about it. So much to talk about. It's really good. Obviously, we could break this up in a lot of different ways. And so we're going to section it off like this. Let's start with just kind of the concept of the movie, the cultural impact. So we're talking about, if you haven't seen the trailer and everything, because I don't like to reiterate, and like if you listen to review, I would assume you know the story. But as it's presented, we're talking about a story about an African tribe empire, whatever you want to call it, kingdom. The homie that has a all-female king's guard, and they're also revered. I mean, he has a larger, army too, but they're the king's guard, and they're revered as some of the toughest warriors. And I didn't read this myself, but I heard that many people mentioned that the Dora Milaje from Black Panther were originally loosely based off these women. So we have that. And then the conflict comes with another larger empire that they're under and they want to break free from. And then there's the slave trade in the middle of it. So already you have a lot of representation that we don't normally see. And then on top of that, you have these comparisons to Black Panther. Now, I didn't even watch the trailer. I just saw the image and I was like, oh, I heard like this kind of the story. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm watching this. Viola probably gonna kill it. And so I went into it like, you know what? I've seen Black Panther. I'm not gonna get hit like I got hit with that, because that was probably one of the pivotal representations that we had in Hollywood. But man, I got smacked again. Absolutely. Because yes, there's a lot of similarities and feelings that you can have with Black Panther, but it is different. And what I really like about it, I'll talk a little bit about later, is not only this representation of Africa in a different light, but also this representation of, women in Africa and what they were doing. So that's that. The second thing we got to talk about in terms of black content, I talked about this with The Harder They Fall. It's a liberatory fantasy. And so while you have some stories taking parts from historical events like The Harder They Fall, they bring it together to create a different story to present that is, not necessarily accurate, but it is more, it's a fantasy. And so a lot of talk was about the historical accuracy of this and their role. Honestly, most of the complaints I heard sound like they didn't watch the movie, because the discussion was about their what do you call it? Their not responsibility, but their part in the slave trade. And if you watch the movie, that's what the whole movie is about. The whole movie is about that conflict and that discussion of philosophy, if we should be, participating in this. So it's not like, because the comments that a lot of people said was that the movie glosses over. No, it doesn't. The whole movie's about that. So there's that. But on top of that, many movies have been changed around as far as accuracy and been presented as accurate. Many movies do things where, like a Tarantino, where they, it's just a movie. We're changing it around because we want to tell a particular story. And so this happens all the time. And then with this, as I said, it's a black liberatory fantasy. There's going to be parts where it is intentionally created to build that emotion of freedom that we never saw. Again, I talked about it with the harder they fall, and we have some other movies, but we're starting to see more of it. This is a concept of critical race theory that's starting to spread more, and we have to have it. We have to have these images of us breaking free or revolting against the oppressors, or, us being larger than life, because we've had hundreds of years of images and rhetoric that was the opposite. It showed us weaker, lesser than. So within this movie, if you go into it understanding that it is a black liberatory fantasy, it is, has foundations with some historical roots, and then take it as a package, I think it's perfectly fine. All right, so that's that. And then let's talk about the themes in the movie, the larger themes, and then we'll talk about the movie. So the themes that I love about this movie is that it really hits on the intersection of gender and race. And Out of Bounds, on my podcast, I talk about that a number of times, because there's so many similarities in those conflicts, in those struggles. But people compartmentalize it, and they don't really recognize it most of the time. But it is very similar, and it's all rooted in some of the same issues. And so with Viola Davis's character Naneska, we see, through her story arc, not only her struggle with the external enemy, to Dahomey, but also her struggles within Dahomey. Not just because of different philosophies, but also because she is a woman. And it's so interesting because with Dahomey, with the king, with everybody, they're going to, we're united, we're family, we're friends, all that, we're together. But even when she's with, and she has those intimate moments with her troops, and when she's just with the Goji, she never stops to remind, or she never misses a point to remind them about men. And she tells that to the captives: we're not going to punish you for the sins of your men. She tells them, to the warriors, if you get caught by men, this is how they're going to this is how they're going to look at you, how they're going to use you. And that she talks about that with the fathers, everything. And is not forced. It's completely natural, and it's a great mirror to show you the real intersectionalism that people live through. Now, obviously, we're talking about a different time period and a whole different space. But even in 2022, that's how a lot of people operate. Whether it's as a black woman, a brown woman, whatever your intersections is, whether you're a black gay man, anything. Like when you have those multiple intersections of oppressed identities, I won't even say oppressed identities, but minoritized identities, that is going to happen. So she has to navigate in so many different ways, and I think it's interesting. And again, they don't really speak on it, but the movie itself kind of tells that story. So that theme is there. Obviously, you have the philosophical debate that we have not talked about a lot in the history of America. And again, which is why I love us getting more black content, because now we can get into things that I'm 30 something, so I wasn't a kid that long ago, but you're still talking about decades ago. I never heard none of this. And the kids now, they're growing up with these discussions we never had. So now we're not in just, the slavery is bad, but we're in the nuance of it, of talking about we are playing a part in this slave trade, slowly killing ourselves. And the Naneska, she looks at it and says, like others, look, we're trading to get weapons and, guns, horses, all this stuff, and money, so that we have the resources to go conquer other people, to sell, to get more people to sell, to get more weapons, to get more people. And it's a vicious, circle. And all the while, We are the ones fighting each other in Africa and selling off other people who are African. And the Europeans, the Spaniards, the Portuguese, all of them, they're not falling off. They just making money. And we're helping them. And again, so you have this idea of where we can be united as the homie. We can even be united as African, villages or tribes that are fighting each other. We could be united against the Europeans and still have issues with each other. And so there's a lot of different interplay that goes on. And it brings up, a very real conversation that even exists today. Like, and it's interesting because the first time I watched it, I was like, it's weird having this movie, even though it's true or, somewhat true, but it's weird that they're depicting black people or African people in this light that is counter to the narrative we've been told. So they're showing us as regal, royal, as having fun, as smart, fierce, all these things. But then we have all this black on black violence, all these black bodies killing black bodies. And you think about immediately black on black violence and all the talk people talk about. But then I had to pause the first time. And the second time I was fully aware where I could say, you know what? But the difference is, this is true. This is what happened. But it shows that we are multifaceted. It's not a sense of, hey, you're black, I'm black, so we're always together. Like I said, with Inesca inside the homie, she has internal arguments with them. But together against an external threat, we got to be together. And then not only that, because this isn't in the movie, but you kind of play it out. You had these people that were warring with each other, that had issues with each other, whatever, and then they get caught and shipped over to America. They don't know the language. They don't know anything. And now that's where you see what was done to the African American people. They broke all those ties to Africa. They broke all those ties to their home. And now you kind of dissolve those differences because now they have a different common enemy. And, years down the line, we lose our heritage, but then we form a new bond. And again, we still fight. We still have violence against each other. We still have, black resentment against each other. But overall, as a lot of people talk about the black man head, not all that good stuff of like us having to stick together because we know that, despite what we have against each other, the other races is still a threat to us. So it was just very interesting. Now let's talk about the movie. I really enjoyed the movie. I really, really enjoyed the movie. I thought so much was well done. The costume design and the costume designs, top notch, elite. Set designs, really strong. Especially with a small budget, it's crazy what they was able to do. But it felt authentic. It felt, natural. The acting, I thought everybody's acting was on par. I mean, it was great. I think one of the issues that I've heard, and that I agree with, the way it was phrased is that it feels kind of Hollywood. And for me, number one is the editing. There's definitely so many scenes that you're like, they really cut in the middle of this. Like, and it just feels kind of random, but they do a lot of sharp cut editing to try to string together the story a little tighter, when I think it probably could have breathed a little more, but there's also stuff you could have plain out cut. And number one is this love story with the half African, half white dude, Malik. That could have been cut completely or edited way down. And that could have gave you more time to explore other stuff. Because they take very much care. They take a lot of care to not go into those tropes of, women and men. When he tries to help I can't remember the little girl's name. I forgot to pronounce it, but the little girl who's the main new warrior. He tries to help her down. She doesn't take his hand. She does it herself. They lean in to kiss. She doesn't kiss him. She takes the knife. Like a lot of different things where it's like, okay, we're not going to lean into that trope. We never see them like really do anything together. And so it's just like, cut it out. What's the point? If we're not going to lean into this typical, a woman has to fall in love with a man, then what's the point of even having it? Like, he barely helps moves the plot for it. I just thought you could cut at least all the stuff out to the end, and the movie would have been much better served with that, because that did not work. And that did feel a little more Hollywood. And so I'll give it that. Now the twist with was it Naori? Her being the daughter of Nanesca, I thought was a great twist. It was a great twist. But it did feel kind of soap opera. It fell a little bit out of nowhere. I'm not gonna lie to you. I liked it. I liked the way it was executed. I liked it. But in terms of just the story, it did feel a little Hollywood. Let's add some sauce on this when you might not have needed to. And yeah, just a couple other things that if you feel in that moment like this isn't necessarily natural, it's just kind of a Hollywood action thing. So there's a little bit of that, but it's overpowered by all the stuff in the movie that is so great. It's absolutely great. So as the execution of the movie, like I said, the technical stuff is great. The acting is great. I think the direction is pretty good. The editing is what really falls off for me. Not a huge fan of that. But I like the way they choreograph the fights and all that good stuff. They just foreshadow some things. Again, it's with the editing. The way they edit and show things, especially when you see it the second time, it's like telegraphed who's going to die or who's going to do something. And so it's a little too on the nose when it could have been more nuanced. But the rest of the movie, like I said, is just so good that I'm fine with it. So, but yeah, I could talk about a lot of different things. And I think Viola Davis absolutely killed it. Now, I know a lot of people are applauding the new girl or the new actress who played the young girl. And she was great. Big star coming out of this. But Viola, she needs an award. She needs an award, man. 100% she needs an award. I love so much. I love Azuki. I love Ameza. I love all of them, man. I loved it. So anyway, I'm gonna stop there. I'll probably give it an 89. Probably give it 89 over 100. So B+. So go down in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Share it around. Get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe. And if you heard it here, it's official canon.